AFU United WFC.
Good evening and welcome to the AFU WFC show with me, Matt Crane. Four of us are back tonight. We're actually live after a couple of Tuesday pre-records, so it's good to be back with the original gang. John, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Not too bad. Lionesses on again, so we got that in the corner of our eye.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I didn't get a memo about fancy dress either tonight.
I'm not saying the banter will come in throughout the night, I'm sure.
I'm just waiting for Rob. Anthony, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, same old, same old.
Good stuff. And yourself, Gareth?
Yeah, I'm absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much. Had a great day at the zoo with work, so feeling nice and refreshed.
I'm surprised I didn't.
Yeah. What bet did you lose, Gareth?
What bet did I lose? I didn't lose any bet. I'm comfortable in who I am. Why not? Matches my t-shirt.
I know he's got his Alfie Moon t-shirt on and his Megan Rapinoe hair.
He's kind of pink flamingos layer.
He's done what?
He's kind of pink flamingos layer.
Saw them earlier.
Remind me to my photo. I'll take it with you on Sunday. It'll be good.
I'll give you my autograph as well if you want.
Yeah, that'll be good. I like it.
The thing is though, John, if you wear that bucket hat, I won't be the most ridiculous person. So,
I'll wear it then.
Saying that, can we complete the set, Anthony, and you paint your face, lad?
Yeah, we knew we could. I knew that was coming.
Me as well.
Yeah. No, only special occasions, I'm afraid.
Well, it will be a special occasion. We're playing Chelsea. I'll bring my red love heart glasses. Gareth's got his wacky style.
Yeah, my red love heart glasses are only over there. I can go the whole lot. Pink hair, pink glasses.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, sure, why not? I don't care.
Oh, right. I will actually introduce the show properly now, nearly 3 minutes in. But tonight, we're going to be talking about, is it going to be a new era? Obviously, we've got a New England boss, a proper boss by the looks of it as well. None of these stand-ins or clueless people. So we're going to talk, obviously, about the Lionesses. It's on today as well. Bad kickoff timing. You know, these people should be planning around us, but no, I'm just joking. It is what it is. I'm going to go on to that. We'll go into sort of a few new call-ups. Obviously, there is injuries as well. We'll talk about a different way of playing, different style of play, different formation. And we're also going to get onto ticket prices because I've been doing a little bit of research and there's quite a few clubs where they have whacked up ticket prices. So we'll get into that. So first of all, then, obviously, starting with England, Friday's game. I'll start with you, Gareth. We played a 4-3-3. Same as what she did as Holland boss. And, new style of play, something we'd not tend to do before. What did you make of that sort of system and formation then? Obviously, we'll get on to like the ins and outs of the way we played, etc. But what did you make of that? Because 4-3-3 is known to be quite attacking.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, actually. I probably made a couple of changes with how we were set up, but mainly personnel as opposed to system. I think it's difficult to judge against these two opponents. I think particularly tonight, again, we're expected to score a lot of goals. We're expected to score a lot of goals last week. But it looked good. I think I'd rather see Leah Williamson at centre-back, but she played well in midfield. She was great. Rachel Daly had a really great game at right back. Obviously not her natural position either. And I just think everyone sort of did what they needed to do and played well. I think for me, the most telling thing about that entire game is that afterwards, Sarina wasn't happy. We'd won 8-0 and she was like, okay, that's fine. But, I'm satisfied, but I wanted more. Whereas, for your first game in charge, a lot of people would just be happy to get the win, get it under their belt, and then build from that. But to be sort of a little bit disappointed in an 8-0 win says a lot for me. They showed highlights just before on ITV Now, and there was a lot of missed chances. We could have scored 10, 12, 13 goals, but didn't. So, we absolutely created a ton of chances, which is great. Something, you really want to see. I think sometimes under Phil Neville, we didn't really create a huge amount of chances, and we're relying on the one or two good chances we did create to go in. But this seems different. This seems like we're going to set up and really go for it. And I'd love to see that, not just against these types of teams, Luxembourg and so on, but let's really, when we play Northern Ireland at Wembley, let's go for it. Let's try and score 6-7 goals. And yeah, I think also the new debuts, which we'll get onto shortly, well, not necessarily debuts, but single-figure capped players getting the opportunity, which is great. It does feel like the start of something new, as opposed to under Hegarista. It kind of felt like a continuation of the old project, which I didn't think was particularly great. So, yeah, optimistic. I know, not many United fans probably care too much about the Lionesses, so I feel in the minority there. But, excited to see where we go from here, but also being realistic in knowing that, the teams we're playing now aren't going to be teams that we play at tournaments. So when we come up against those stronger opposition, it's then that I'm really going to start judging what I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. John, just based on that then and what Gareth said, obviously, it was Macedonia Friday and it is Luxembourg today. And obviously we don't mean that disrespectfully, but, thinking about the bigger teams, I suppose now is the time to sort of, get this new style of playing, formation and way of playing in against these lesser teams and in the qualifiers, knowing that, again, without being arrogant, we'll probably walk the group. What are your thoughts then? Because obviously, we will need to be on the ball, obviously, against sort of bigger nations, your likes of your Germanys, your Frances, things like that. I'm thinking if it's World Cup as well, obviously the USA. But how have you sort of seen it going so far? I mean, like I say, it's difficult to tell Friday because it was sort of an inferior team. But what are your initial thoughts on it at the minute?
I think it's exciting when you are against the weaker teams. However, there's no saying that she's going to set up the same way against the bigger teams, because when you've only got like one in the centre of midfield and that being more of a centre back than an actual centre midfield, I think that would leave yourself quite vulnerable. I appreciate Tooney and Kirby could tuck in, but then you're leaving yourself vulnerable out wide. So for me, you can't really see too much just yet. If they play the same formation against a bigger team, then I think it's going to be more telling. But I think then you're leaving yourself open a bit more. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of seeing three attackers actually up top. So then obviously that just leaves the three in midfield. Seeing Tooney out wide, we've seen that. We've seen that for United, even though we prefer a more infield. We've seen it out wide. We've seen Kirby, a bit of both. So I think with these smaller teams, yeah, we can have a bit of fun and play around a little bit. But I would rather see maybe, Williamson actually. Is she the right person to put in that centre midfield? Probably not. But with all the injuries that they've got, then I can kind of see why that's kind of being forced on her. So I think at the moment, let's just enjoy the fact that we are playing attacking football. We're creating loads of chances, but I do think we'll probably see a couple of changes going into some of the tougher games.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Anthony, on that then, we're talking sort of formations and will it be changed for bigger teams? But how do you see that going sort of forward in terms of call-ups? Obviously, we know we've got injuries and we're going to get onto that a little bit later, but would you be sort of calling up players to fit the system, or do you think, obviously, I mean, like I say, again, it's hard to judge one game in, but do you think maybe we've got the players or we've got a rough idea of players that are capable of playing that? Because obviously, let's not forget, you do need, and we've seen it at United, you do need players to fit your system. And sometimes, certainly at club level, we've been guilty of playing what I call square pegs in round holes and it doesn't fit. But how do you see that then going forward? Would you maybe, like I say, persist with it and then judge it after 5-6 games? Or do you think, actually, do you know what, the team looked all right Friday, couple of changes today, and again, we should be expected to win? So what are your thoughts then on that?
Yeah, I think like we've touched on, playing teams like this, it's all right, and it depends if she wants to play like that. Like, it's going to be different regardless of other teams. But it's like what we discussed. And it's all about changing to adapt to the team we're playing. I think so. If we can learn to play in different formations, there might be players in the squad that suit a different style. So you might have the likes of Tooney in one game, but then a certain style of play that Sarina wants to play for another game might not suit her style, and she might feel like this player is better fitted for that formation of play. So no, I think she'll want to do 4-3-3 as much as she can, but what works for one team doesn't necessarily work for another team. I think the squad depth's there. I think we've got a manager there who will clearly pick players on form and on merit. You only have to see that through the people that have been only recently played, like the likes of Elatoon and that, and Mary Earps being back in the fold, which is, as United fans, well, some of us United fans, we're always happy to see one of our players in the squad, as long as they don't get injured. So, no, I think we'll persist with this for now, but I think training as well, they'll do different scenarios. So I don't think it would just be 4-3-3 that she is doing in training. I think they'll be learning different styles of play, and you'll see it when the terms of the quality is a bit higher, that they might be a bit more on the defensive side, shoring it up a bit.
Yeah, I suppose it's important, isn't it? Because like you say, depending on your opposition, we do need to obviously change, not necessarily the way we play. I mean, sticking with 4-3-3 is fine, but maybe change our approach in terms of tactically and, like you say. Just before we move to the next bit, I'll go on to this and I'll let you answer this, Gareth. Do you think there is more of a media attention towards success of Lionesses and women's international football rather than the WSL? And could that potentially be holding the WSL back? It's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think there absolutely is more media attention towards the Lionesses, because the WSL, in terms of eyes and attention, is a much newer thing than the international team. I think most people's kind of avenue into women's football recently has been, we started watching the Lionesses when it was at the major tournaments. So for me, it was the 2015 World Cup. So I started watching that and then kind of started watching other women's football from that. So I wonder if other people are similar. But I think there's also the fact there are more women's games. Like, you see this in the fact that people like Sinclair and Carly Lloyd can get more than 300 caps. So I think there's just more games, so there's naturally going to be more attention. There's tournaments every year, with the She Believes Cup, and obviously the new one that the FA are launching, which the name slips me by now. I'm not sure if it's got one yet. But so there's going to be a tournament every year. And then obviously the World Cup and Euros as well. So I just feel like potentially in women's football, in the international game is seen as being the peak and the sort of end goal for a lot of players. Whereas I think in the men's game, the Champions League potentially is seen as being that peak. So whereas maybe for a women's footballer, their goal is going to be to play for England, I think potentially in men's football, the goal will be to play for a Champions League club. So I think potentially, there is more media attention, but no, I don't think it's holding the WSL back. I think the coverage of the Lionesses is a great gateway to get people interested in the WSL, particularly now it's going to be on ITV. So more people are going to see it. And then obviously people will be like, oh, where can I watch these players again? And then they'll go onto Sky and watch WSL.
Yeah, Gareth just kind of just ended there saying the point that I was going to make as well. I mean, when I was like, say, in the last 8 years or so, if I'm going to watch a women's game, the only one that I would probably be able to find without looking too hard behind the red button would be Lionesses. So you automatically start looking at national teams, whereas now that it's on Sky, now that you will see a lot more. All of a sudden, it's the opposite. You will start seeing WSL games on BBC and on Sky Sports there a lot more. So I think that will help at WSL. But yeah, I agree with Gareth. I think in the last few years, it's a great gateway and it does kind of get you involved, it gets you interested. But that's why there's probably a lot more Lionesses fans than there is like a Man United fan or an Arsenal fan or a Chelsea fan, because I'm the opposite. I would watch Lionesses because of Tooney, whereas a lot of women's fans that watch the Lionesses and then the secondary, they might start following a player or looking at the team then. So I can kind of understand it. But yeah, I don't think it's holding WSL back. I think it's two kind of separate entities, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting point though, because I think on that, obviously my first time watching women's football was 14-15, and that was sort of third tier, fourth tier. So I think for me, off the back of that World Cup in Canada, seeing the Lionesses for me kind of made me sort of similar to what Gareth said, actually, do you know what? Where's this player play? Where's that player play? And I think from that, me personally, I did go and watch other teams. Obviously, this was way pre-United. And, I'd go to my local teams and I'd watch as much as I could just from enjoying that. And obviously, they got the bronze medal, and that's kind of how you get into it. But I think it is an interesting point. And I think I get, what's being said about, there's a lot of attention. I think for me, if we could replicate that maybe, or maybe increase it on the WSL, that would only help the game. I'll come to you then, Anthony. Obviously, if you sort of anything you can add to that. I mean, we talk about Lionesses and inspiring people, and I think it's probably more relatable, isn't it? Because most people follow somebody or the team in general in the Lionesses, so it's something for everyone. Whereas if it's a specific club and you're a United fan, you're not bothered about City, for example. But what do you think on that then?
I pretty much I agree with what's been touched on. Really, I never really knew much about the WSL before United and that. It was like the Lionesses. I brief. If you was to see anything, it would be about the Lionesses. But I was a bit of a late, a bit late compared to like the likes of you and Gareth, where 14, 15. I was 2016 would have been the first memory of me watching women's football. So that would have been 5 years ago. So I was only 27, but even in that space, I think now with Sky coming in and that for the WSL, I can see eventually the media attention possibly getting bigger than the Lionesses, just because of the coverage on it. Whereas before there wasn't coverage, so if there's not coverage about it, then people don't know about it, and then it's like sort of like you're not really like there'll be no interest because like you're not really hearing about things. Whereas with the Lionesses, they've had some good tournament results. What was it? Bronze in 2015. If I'm correct, did they get to the final in 2009? Is that correct?
That's beyond me, that pal. that's 5 years before my time. I know, obviously, they won the She Believes, didn't they?
Yeah, but I think they got to a final in 2009. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I swear I read it somewhere before, or it was one of them ones where a player comes up and they ask about you got to here. So, but yeah, because they've had that success and that, and it's like you sort of see it around a bit more. You, the knowledge on the Lionesses is a bit more than like the WSL for now, but I can see with Sky and all that, I can see it overtaken sort of a bit like the men's, where most people are more fans of their club team than the international team. But
yeah, I think partly an issue there with following club versus country is, if you think about it, in terms of, if you look at the men's game, there's like 92 fully professional clubs with relatively large followings, whereas in the WSL, you're looking at, in terms of like big men's teams with big women's teams, like not even the entire Premier League are there. Norwich are fourth tier, I think. Leeds are fourth tier as well. So Newcastle United down in the fourth tier. Sunderland have only just come up, for example. So it's still, taking its time to get these. So obviously, if you're a Norwich fan, then the chances of you watching Norwich versus the Lionesses, well, you might need to watch Lionesses just because that's what you're going to be able to see. So I think that's going to play a big part of it as well. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see more people get into National League games. But
I didn't even realise Newcastle had a team, to be fair.
Yeah, they battered FC United.
I was going to say, they don't like to talk about Newcastle.
They don't do very well at United, then, are they? Didn't they get battered 9-0 the other week?
Against Fylde, yeah, but that's different.
Yeah, Fylde are top of the third tier, so it's...
Fylde scored 31 goals at the weekend, so...
And we missed that. I can't believe
31.
31-0.
They won 31-0, yeah.
Bloody hell. Were they playing blind people?
Well, no, I think it was a cup game, but it was one of them because we were looking for games, and obviously John went to Stourbridge, and the FA Full Time, which is the website for sort of third tier downwards, I didn't realise didn't have cup competitions. So Altrincham played for free. I think it was in Runcorn or Widnes. Could have gone to that, and obviously, that was another one which would have been interesting to report on a 31-0.
I was excited about mine. I saw 11 goals, and I was really happy with mine. And then Craney messages me saying, "You can top that 31 goals."
Yeah, got it. Yeah. But so sort of linking in then to obviously what we're talking about in terms of obviously Lionesses and being inspired and club versus country and all that. I suppose for me personally, and I don't know, I'll start with you, John, on this. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I felt like the relationship between fans and the national team has maybe been a little bit strained over the past 2, possibly 3 years. Obviously, Samson left under, those circumstances, which were, far from ideal. And obviously, I'm sure everyone's well aware of what went on there and investigations and everything. We then got Phil Neville, who his brand of football wasn't the best. Defensively, we were poor, and attacking wise, again, we weren't brilliant. And I think obviously the disappointment of the Olympics, obviously Hager Risa came in, little bit of a stopgap. We knew it was temporary. She knew it was temporary. Maybe again, results weren't excellent. But do you think now this is a good time? Like I say, we're talking about new eras and moving on. Now is a good time with, a new formation and these exciting young players for Sarina to maybe not rebuild the relationship, but maybe patch it up. Because like I say, it's not just me. I've read fans from sort of Arsenal, Chelsea, Championship clubs getting a little bit frustrated under the same call-ups, which we'll get onto, same players and sort of same results and way of playing. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of rebuilding that excitement and that sort of, passion?
I think when a new manager comes in, they'll automatically want to get the fans on side. So they'll know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. They'll know what fans want. They'll know what the expectations are from the FA. And one of the things that fans want the most is a team. Well, from what we hear and from what we talk about, it's about playing the right players in the right position. It's about getting a new breed in as well. So not just all the same names who are probably coming towards the end of the career. They want to see new players come in. And playing style. I think those are the 3 things that fans want to see a lot of. And I think, obviously, it's still early days, but I think the fact that we're now playing 2 fairly easy teams, it allows the managers to do that now, and she's doing that. So I think this is a great opportunity for that to happen. Obviously, it means nothing qualifies really, because you'd expect to get through to a competition. You'd expect to get through to a tournament competition, but we'll see it more down the line. But I think at the moment she's going to hit the ground running almost by default, I guess, because the results are going to be there, the goals are going to be there. So for me, it's all about what players she's going to end up picking. We've seen Tooney come in, and obviously we can touch on some other players as well. But for me, I think it's going to be very hard for her to fail in the first year or so, because I think the results and the amount of attacking football that we're going to play is almost automatically going to be there.
Yeah, and speaking of goals, I think Ellen White's just put England ahead.
Good finish.
Yeah, toe poked in across from Lauren Hemp.
I'm on 11 minutes, so I'm a little bit behind.
Oh, sorry, John. You
behind.
John's on the dodgy stream, innit? Because you can't.
He must have bought your Wi-Fi broadband from.
He has, hasn't he? He's got the Manchester package for his TV.
Yeah, it's a good goal.
I mean, it should
again, pal. You've missed the second one. No,
it should come as a surprise to literally nobody that Lauren Hemp is involved in the goals. I'll continue to bang this drum forever and ever and ever until I die.
Yeah, well, that'll lead us in nicely, Gareth, and you can start that off then, because what I was going to say was, obviously, we talked about injuries, and it's led to new call-ups. Do you think then, come the next international break at the end of October, there's going to be sort of a lot of changes in call-ups, a few changes, or maybe a little bit of a mix? Because obviously, we'll lead into this, and I'll let Anthony go after you, sort of on the same people being picked despite poor form at club and for country. But what do you think in terms of the next squad, obviously looking ahead and sort of into the future, obviously bearing in mind we're building to that home Euros?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, because obviously we've got players. If you look at the injury list of players to come back in, I mean, largely the City players, but generally Karen Bardsley's probably not going to make it back into the squad. Ellie Roebuck definitely will. The question is who for? Which for me it would be Carly Telford, but for some reason, managers like having her there. I imagine she's there essentially as a glorified goalkeeping coach, which is fine, but then just employ a goalkeeping coach. For me, so if Telford is a must, it'd be McIver for me, McKeever, that drops out. But we'll talk about that shortly anyway. So yeah, Roebuck will probably get back in. You imagine Bronze, Walsh, Horton, when they're back fit, will all come back in. Obviously, Kelly's going to be out for a while. We'll probably need to find some form at City before she's back in. But you imagine that she'll be there. And then I think, those that are likely to drop out, well, have a look at who doesn't really get the game time this time. I imagine Zellum will probably be one to go when Walsh is fit again. But with the attackers, it's really difficult. Beth Mead's in great form at the moment, so is in there on merit. But if she drops up in form, then maybe that's a replacement later on. Rachel Day's having a great... She played really well last week. So you imagine probably Esme Morgan is going to be the one that drops out for bronze as just a straight swap. So yeah, it's tricky. And I think the attack is probably the more difficult one. Like, where does Chloe Kelly fit back into that attack? Because you don't drop Lauren Hemp. At the moment, you don't drop Tooney. If you drop in Paris, that's a big, big call. Ellen White, again, that's a massive call to drop. Beth England is starting to play as well. Frank Kirby, arguably the best player in the world last year. So, yeah, it's tricky, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, and obviously on that, Anthony, as well, a name that Gareth hasn't mentioned, and she's doing really well in America, Ebony Salmon. We could easily throw her into the mix, and obviously, if you want to talk about sort of people playing that maybe don't play regular for clubs or they're not informed, do you want to talk to me on sort of that and Ebony?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of what Ebony's been doing in America. But it's one of those, isn't it? If you're banging in the goals, then you deserve your chance. And hopefully, I know we say it's only Luxembourg, but hopefully if we get comfortable, then hopefully she'll give a few of the other players a chance, the likes of Ebony and even Zellum, just so it gives her a bit of international experience. Like Gareth touched on, I expect people like Zellum to be ones to drop out once the City contingent are back mainly. But I don't think Sarina will be afraid to make big decisions. It seems to be a burden with the England, not just with the men's but the women's, where you pick the name. Like a prime example was when with Scholes, Gerrard, and Lampard. You put Scholes on the left just so you can, and it doesn't always work. But I feel Sarina will pick people on merit, but it is what it is. That it's still only 2 games. There's a lot of time before the next World Cup. We've still got the Euros. I expect the likes of Steph Houghton and that will be in the plans for the Euros. But going on to like the World Cup, getting all these new people in, like the likes of Tooney and that, will only be good for when we do get to the World Cup with the experience they've had and having. So hopefully by the time we get to the World Cup, we'll be in a prime condition, like hopefully one of the favourites. And because I know we slate Phil Neville, but until the last World Cup semi-final, he was doing all right, and then it seemed to
Go on.
It got us to the World Cup semi-final against the USA. Maybe
he could have won that game as well.
Yeah, he could have been
with a better side, I think,
tactically better, but
with a decent manager, who would have won that game.
It was after. I think it was after that them results just went totally downhill, and But what were we going to say, Gareth?
Yeah, I just think the interesting thing. Try again. I think the home Euros will be a last hurrah for a decent chunk of players.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably see players like Horton, Jill Scott. If she's picked, but I think she's probably had that last hurrah already. But we'll see that as being the send off. So, but there needs to be that balance, doesn't there, between having that group of players that's been the core group of players for years move on, and then also being able to bring those younger players through, because obviously you want that mix of youth and experience. And obviously Bronze is only going to be 30 next summer, so Lucy Bronze at 32 is more than capable of absolutely smashing it at a World Cup. I think if you look at the age of some of the Americans, Christine Sinclair, they're all well into their 30s, so there's nothing stopping. I was going to say Americans and Sinclair as a separate entity. Just because if I said Americans, I could have gone through Press, Lloyd, Heath, and reeled off a lot of them. But thank you. Women's footballers generally tend to play longer at an international level. So, will we see them go? I think potentially that a few will go after the Euros. But I want to see these younger players start coming through as well. But while Ellen White is scoring the goals that she's scoring, while Lucy Bronze is one of the best right backs in the world, you want them in the squad. So it's going to be a balancing act, and it's going to be a tough one to get right.
Absolutely. I think, looking at now, 2 shots, 2 goals within just sort of 21 minutes. I'll start with you, John. Obviously, Friday's 8-0 win, we talked about, and Gareth mentioned Sarina wasn't too happy. I think she described the performance as okay. And she said, it was okay. We do need to face better opposition to, ultimately see how we fare and how players adapt to new ways of playing. But, I look at it and we had 48 shots, 18 on target, so less than half. And for me, despite the 8-0 win, we were very, very wasteful, which, some people might turn around and say, well, we won 8-0. But to me, if that was a better team, we need to start taking the chances. We've won 8-0, great, but we could have had about 15, literally. And it's like, it's fine margins. I just think we need to work on that clinicalness. Rachel Yankee also come out and said it was disappointing regarding the finishing. I think she was praising certain players for certain things and everything else, but she said, in terms of finishing, it was disappointing. What do you sort of make on that? Obviously, do you think that's warranted and fair, or would you say, well, actually, you know what? We won 8-0. It was game one. It's a new system with new players and injuries. Let's just take that and see how we're fair against better teams.
I think it's very fair that people say it was just an okay performance, or at least you could say that it was very good from in defence and midfield, but then you could turn around and say, well, up front it was just okay. Because, if you're kind of, some of those shots were very, very tame. It was almost pass backs to the goalkeeper. And that's not acceptable, is it? It doesn't matter if you're 8-0 up or what, you've still made a mistake there by not hitting the target or testing the goalkeeper. So I thoroughly agree with that. I think it's a good position to be in. Obviously, if you're 8-0 up and you can still criticise, that is obviously a good position. However, as you quite rightly said, if you're playing tougher competition, then you are going to come unstuck. We're 20 minutes in now, 2-0 up here. You kind of expect these. You kind of expect chances. So when you expect chances, you need goals, don't you, to back it up. There's a couple of players who did get on the score sheet who could have scored more, who pretty much fluffed a few chances. And it's not quite right, because if you're literally 5, 6, 7 yards from goal, it doesn't matter if you've scored once already. It means that you made a very big mistake, really, by not scoring again. And this is the kind of level that we need to get to win competitions. And this is why some of the players aren't picked for their club team, because they're just not ruthless enough in front of goal, and which is a shame, because obviously an 8-0 win is still very commendable, but it's kind of also expected, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think on that as well, obviously, like I said, against better teams where it's not going to be 8-0, if you're creating that many chances and not putting them away, it's going to start to affect you mentally, isn't it? You might not, but you might question yourself. Like for me, I said, Tuna could have had a hat-trick within the first half hour. She wasn't the only one. There was other players as well that, could have done things. But I think those are the chances. And sometimes, as a forward, you do need confidence, and you may start to potentially doubt yourself, which obviously you don't want. And obviously Stuart says it here about Tuna should have had a hat-trick. And, I fully agree. Going to move on just to the final part then. And something that Sarina sort of spoke about earlier on. I think it was linked to the World Cup every 2 years, or the Euros every 2 years, or a tournament, which is just ridiculous. But it got me thinking about potential player burnout, and I'll let you start with this, Gareth. Emma Hayes obviously mentioned about the need to protect Fran Kirby and to see the best version of Fran Kirby for not only club but country as well. She needs to be managed carefully. I think of Friday when Tooney got a knock, and obviously Tooney did come out and say, I'm fine, and they'd have had to drag me off. But for me, that should be the manager looking after players, duty of care to players and potentially not aggravating it and, it affecting club form. And then I think of the times when Jackie played for Holland as well, and she maybe played quite a lot of games for United, had no rest, straight into the Olympics. Do you potentially think that player burnout could be an issue under Sarina? Because she doesn't seem to, from what I've seen from Holland and things like that, she doesn't seem to massively rotate, and if she does, it's minimal. Could that be an issue, or is that me just maybe reading too much into things, ignoring the tournament ridiculous suggestion, just as we are now?
Yeah, I mean, one major tournament a year is absolutely ridiculous, and the fact it's even being entertained as something viable is just laughable. I think player burnout is a real threat, but I think also it's on everybody, right? The players they're grown adults, they are perfectly able to take responsibility for their own fitness. Like if a player came back from pre-season and was sort of overweight and lacking fitness, then that's on them. So I think partly, managing fitness is also partly down to the player, but also it's down to club managers as well. They're going to play 22 league games this year, which isn't a great deal of games. They have a long break over the winter which the men don't, where I think that they generally need that winter break more than the women do. I don't know. I think potentially yes, but also, I think as clubs are becoming more and more professional, then it's going to become less and less of a problem. Just because the fitness is going to be better because the facilities are better. But yeah, you don't want to see players. It would be a concern. Jackie had a relatively long break before the Olympics. It wasn't like the season finished in May and then she was off to the Olympics. The season finished in May. She had June and July more or less off, and then to the Olympics in August, and then back and into the season. So her season started a bit earlier than everybody else's, but then there's a winter break a bit later on. So yeah, I don't know. I think potentially, but it shouldn't be too difficult to manage.
Yeah. What I'm going to do now before we move on to goalkeepers, I'm just going to quickly fire around. There's been a lot of talk on the captaincy. Will it change? Are we going to change it? Are we keeping the same? So we'll go round. We'll just do the order on screen. So we'll go John, Anthony, Gareth. If you're changing captain, who you're picking, you can either go into detail or just give me a name. It's entirely up to you on what you want to discuss. So off we go, John.
I always like to look at the future. So if you're going to change a captain, you can't just swap and change him. So not providing everyone's fit, going by what it is now, I'd be happy just to stick with Williamson. But obviously, when players come back, I can see it potentially being someone different. So, but short answer, just if you're going to make that change, stick with who you've made right now.
Yeah, Anthony.
I think she'll stick with Horton, but I think Lucy Bronze would be a good shout. Obviously, you've mentioned Williamson being a bit younger, but Bronze has been there and done it all. Champions League winner, French winner, WSL winner, won it all. So best right back in the world, other than Honor Bagier. So no, I think with her experience, Bronze would be a good shout. But if we're looking to the future, then and a long-term thing, then yeah, someone like Williamson would be good. So I think she'll stick with Steph as long as she's still playing, though. But
that's an interesting thought, that, actually. And obviously, I suppose you could throw Greenwood into the mix as well, potentially. I just think, though, I'm just looking at it. Obviously, Leah, 20 caps, and she's only 24, which isn't an issue. But I just think in terms of commanding that respect, maybe Bronze isn't a bad shout. You could throw, like I say, you could throw Greenwood in there. You could throw Nobbs. Gareth, I'll come to you.
I mean, this should come as an absolutely no surprise to you.
Yeah.
Leah, I think I've been saying this for a couple of years. I thought when she was maybe 22 that she was ready for it. You disagreed at that point, which is fine. But I don't think Sarina's going to be scared to change the captaincy if she's, she obviously trusts Williamson. Otherwise, if she was thinking about mixing things up, it would have been a great opportunity to have a captain for today and a different captain for Friday. So, clearly players like Greenwood aren't in her thinking with regards to the captaincy. So maybe she is thinking long term. Maybe she is kind of thinking, let me get a captain that can really sort of stick with me and my sort of tenure here. So I think Leah, and I think whilst Bronze is great, and she's probably got another 4 years or so. Williamson could be England captain for the next 10 years. And you mentioned sort of commanding respect. I think she already does. Although she's only got sort of 20 caps, I don't think that there's any sort of lack of respect. I think if you look at the way she spoke to the media after the last game, particularly she got given player of the match, and obviously the whole ceremony around giving that to Rachel Daly. She when she's talked, she talks like a captain, and I think that's a huge part of it as well. Like, she could easily be the face of this team for the next 10 years.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. I think in terms of respect, I didn't mean like people would disrespect her. Obviously, you know, it's not something that you see that sort of, you know, people start slagging. But I just meant in terms of like her age, people maybe, not necessarily players, but fans could be like, hang on, she's still a young player, still with stuff to learn. Whereas, you know, you look at like to Bronze, Greenwood that have done it before and maybe, you know, got more experience. But I guess it's one of them, you know, if you're good enough and you're able enough, then you're more than ready. It's like the debate about throwing in youngsters in a game. Going to move on then the last little bit before we go into sort of tickets about goalkeepers. So I did bring to your attention this morning, good friend of the show, Emma Sanders, put out a brilliant piece on the BBC about the goalkeepers and the goalkeeping situation. She talked about, obviously, you know, I think she put out 6. I think she included Rambo on it. 6 goalkeepers. She had Carly Telford, Sandy McKeever, Rambo, Karen Bardsley, Hannah Hampton, Ellie Roebuck. And obviously I'm going to throw Mary Earps in there as well. Now, Emma talked about, obviously, this being a competitive battle, the role of a goalkeeper changing over the past few years. You know, we have talked a lot about, you know, and criticised why we take older keepers, and the argument's always been experience. But looking at this, for me, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because to be fair, if you take out Karen Bardsley and you take out Carly Telford, there's quite a lot of choice there, all similar age. Hampton, Rambo, Roebuck, McKeever, very, very similar in age. You know, there's probably 1, 2, at most 3 years between them. And then you've got Mary, who's sort of 28. I'll start with you, Anthony, because I know you love Mary. And obviously, you're a fan of your goalkeepers, a little bit like me. But is this a good thing, or is it going to mean that, you know, potentially, because we have got so many talented options, that somebody not necessarily may get lost, but may not get given the chance, you know? Because I look, and like I say, I'd base it on if Telford and Bardsley retire, which 3 do you take? You know, do you take Mary, Ellie, and Sandy? Do you take Hampton as your 3rd? You know, do you take McKeever? Where do we go? Because it was an interesting article, I thought, and there was some very great points in there from Emma.
Yeah, no, make good points. If you took Carly and Bardsley out, Bardsley and Telford out, sorry, not Karen and Bardsley, if I said that stupidly. I think at this moment in time, you would take Roebuck, Earps, and I'd possibly take Hampton over McKeever. I think, but that's just my opinion. But you talk about goalkeepers getting lost, not getting their chance. You can look at it both ways, can't you? You can see it as it's a good headache, isn't it, for the manager, knowing that she has so many options, and if someone isn't, hopefully you pick people on form, so then you have got an option to give another person a chance. But then you look another way, and someone could get lost, like, no matter how good they're doing, managers tend to get comfortable with their choices, and like you've pointed out with Telford being like sort of there for coaching, but I don't know why, if that's the case, why you can't ask her if she's happy to come to just coach experience and have someone like McKeever or Hampton as the third choice goalkeeper in the squad, so that they can have that experience given to them as well, instead of having, and this is a thing as well, she's not even playing for Chelsea, is she? Now, you would expect if it was a lower league, a lower team, and you're not playing, then you're fair enough. But with a team like England and the quality they have, I think the players, I think they should be playing for their club. I don't understand how you can have a playing with England. Lionesses. I don't see how Carly Telford can keep getting picked if she's not playing for her club. It's all right training in that, but in a match, it's scenarios and that. And I know she's experienced, but like I've just touched, why not just have her there as help to pass on her experience to the youngsters? That's my opinion.
I think that's interesting, isn't it, John? Because it's something I was sort of thinking about this morning. Exactly the same as what Anthony said. Why couldn't either Telford or Bardsley go as a non-playing member of the squad and be a mentor? Obviously, we've got a goalkeeping coach, but I just feel like, you know, they say, well, experience. But I saw Ellie Roebuck play first team for Man City, age 16. This is her 5th, maybe 6th season now, playing regularly. So for me, you know, I suppose the argument could be what is experience. Obviously, yes, Karen Bardsley is late 30s. She's played a lot longer. But, you know, I think just league alone, Ellie Roebuck's played more than 60 games, you know, adding cups and things as well. So for me, the argument of experience is a little bit flawed. Surely, like Anthony said, you want to take your players. I mean, all of those, and barring Rambo until she got her loan, you know, McKeever's number 1 at Everton. Mary's our number 1 for the time being. Ellie Roebuck's been City's number 1 for, like I say, 3, 4, 5 years. You know, Hannah Hampton's now Villa's number 1, was Birmingham's. You know, it's kind of a strange one, isn't it, don't you think? Because, again, they could all potentially get called up, and Mary could be your experience if you're going to go with that argument, would you say? Or
yeah, for me, if it's about experience, then experience isn't about age, it's about how many games you've played. So, you know, if you played a load of games by the age of 19, more than someone who's the age of 25, then the 19-year-old, in my opinion, is more experienced because you've had more, you've been in more situations, haven't you? So, to me, that would work better. I do agree with Anthony's 3 choices. I think he goes there saying that if you're not playing for your club, then it doesn't matter what you've done for your country 3 months ago. That was 3 months ago. It may have even been longer than that last time you played for your country. So you've got to pick players who are in form. That doesn't matter if it's goalkeeper or outfield players. So if you're not playing for your club, then you shouldn't really be thought of to get called up for international duty. And then that's down to the player. If they want to decide to move from their club to get a game for England, then you need to go and do that. But if you're sitting on the bench for your club, then you shouldn't be picked. So yeah, obviously Roebuck would be my first choice, but then you need someone to compete with her. Now at the moment, Mary Earps is doing well for United. She's been pushed herself by Bagley, so Mary Earps is doing well. So there's no harm in her competing against Roebuck. And then if Roebuck does make a couple of mistakes, has a couple of bad games for either City or the Lionesses, then Mary's going to stand in for her. So I completely get those two. And then for me, it would be like one of the, I wouldn't say youngsters, because Rambo hasn't, in my opinion, shouldn't be near just yet, because she hasn't proved herself at club level. But maybe at the end of this season, she will get that. So for me, I've seen more of Hampton than I have McKeever. So I would lean towards Hampton. But that's listed against McKeever at all. So those would be my kind of 3. You've got one youngster there who can get that experience about going to Lionesses camp and give her that motivational boost for the future. But also you've got 2 senior players there who can really compete to be number 1.
Yeah, the only reason I chuck Rambo in was because, like I say, it was on Emma's article as one of
it was, yeah.
one of many goalkeepers.
Well. Obviously, she plays for like the younger teams as well, doesn't she? So I completely get that, absolutely.
And interesting here again, something I've been championing. Stuart mentions about Bagley as well. You know, I'm pretty sure. Listen, she's been in senior squads and made the bench. I think she's had three senior squads she's made, and obviously not come on, but. Gareth, I'll sort of end this with you then. Obviously, probably the injuries and a new manager probably comes at a good time for Mary. And, you know, similar to what John was saying, she's probably not or wasn't last year in terms of like clean sheets and everything far behind Ellie Roebuck. I think she might have been 2 maybe. But what are your thoughts on goalkeepers then? I mean, the other 2 are going with Hampton. I think my 3 would be Mary, McKeever and Roebuck. But do you just want to wrap up this little bit with your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Hampton has had a really poor start to the season. I think she's kept Villa in it to a degree, but I think if you look at the 2 goals they've conceded, she's at fault for both of them. So I think if you're picking players based on form, then it's difficult between her and McKeever because she's not been great either. So yeah, Mary at 100%. If you're picking players on form, she's in there. Roebuck, genuine question. Anthony, John, how many caps do you think Ellie Roebuck has?
Without Googling it.
Well, you just said about 60, so...
No, I said 60 appearances for Man City in the league, pal.
Oh. I'm going to go at 45.
Okay, John?
I'm going to say a little bit lower than that, but as a guess, so I'll say about 35.
7. She's got 7 caps for England, which is...
Is that because Telford plays so many?
Oh,
and Bardsley.
So talking about experience, and she's not even that experienced.
It's because of Karen Bardsley. So yeah, she's got 7 caps for England, which is an absolute madness. Like she's played 94 times for Man City, has been a number 1 for 4 years, but only has 7 caps for England, which is just insane. Although she's 21, I think it's a really awkward time to be a goalkeeper. Like you look at the quality we've got with those players you've mentioned, and yet. As long as I think Roebuck stays in form, then that number 1 spot should really be hers for the next however long she's in form for. So yeah, I think it's come at a great time for Mary because she's probably going to come in, keep 2 clean sheets, and that's great. But at the same time, are these games where you're really going to pick your goalkeepers for future games? I'm not sure. So I think the opportunity really is to go and train and impress in training. And I think that's kind of what this has done, because I imagine that Mary was the replacement for Ellie. Even though, like I say, I would pick the 2, drop Telford and keep McKeever there as the number 3. I think, Stu's mentioned Bagley there. I agree. I think she'd be a great sort of third choice keeper for England. But the issue is she at the moment isn't playing regularly for United. So it's going to be difficult to pick her, or should be difficult to pick someone that's not playing regularly for their club to play for England. But for me, I think Roebuck should be the clear number 1. Because I think that she is the best goalkeeper in the league. This year, she will probably break the record for the most clean sheets in the league ever. Will overtake KB. Mary probably can get close to KB as well, but won't overtake her. And so, obviously, at the age of 21, I think it's really important. The most important thing to have settled in any team is your goalkeeper and your 2 centre backs. So. I think what Sarina needs to do is come in and settle on those 3. You don't want to change the goalkeeper every game. You don't want to switch your centre-half pairings around every game. We're seeing Greenwood and Bright playing today. They played last week. For me, it would probably be Williamson and Lotte Wobben-Moy. That was close. But yeah, so they would be my 3, and then stick with that and move forward with that and build around that. Because I think so much of your defensive stability comes from having a settled, particularly centre half and goalkeeper. And I think that's probably what was a little bit ropey with Neville, was the fact that changed so often. But yeah, I think we've got a lot of good goalkeepers. It's just unfortunate for majority of them that the best is probably the youngest.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, because we talked about, obviously, you mentioned there about Ellie Roebuck not having many caps, and I still feel that Mary's a little bit hard done by. And I know Anthony just put in the chat about, she hadn't played for 2 years, was surprised to get the recall. But I think, you look at her and she's not got many caps at all as well, age 28, and I think. Again, it's one of them. I was talking about maybe somebody being hard done by. I think for me, that's her now. because at the time, KB was City's number one when Mary was young, and Telford was doing okay, and there was other options as well. Chamberlain was in there too. And now we've got so many, like I mentioned, youngsters. So that's going to be interesting to see, sort of, as I mentioned, who maybe misses out. Going to just for the last 5 minutes, and I'm just going to go on to ticket prices because I did say we'd talk about that. Reason going into that is obviously pre-COVID. So when we were all in grounds, ticket prices were set across, clubs, and obviously they varied, which is fair enough, but this year, obviously, first-time fans are back, and some clubs have decided to increase their ticket prices 40 to 50% in certain instances. I'm going to read you a couple of the big hikes. So Charlton have gone 50%. They've gone from £6 to £12 for an adult.
Bloody hell, I'm in there again.
Durham, for an adult, have gone £10 now from £6. You've got Coventry, £10 from £6. Aston Villa have gone from £7 to £10. Chelsea have stayed the same, £8, £9, depending on where you go in the ground. Everton from £6 to £8 for an adult. Blackburn from £6 to £8. And the Lionesses have added on £5 and made it 15. Now, for me, obviously, the reason I wanted to talk about this was I get that it's a business and clubs have lost money due to COVID and there's money to be made, etc. But I look at it and I look at some of them clubs and I think, how on earth are they justifying whacking it up so much? I mean, there's some clubs on there that are the same or more than the champions of the WSL that are reaching cup finals and winning trophies. So I'll start with you, John. What are your thoughts on that? Like I say, I don't like, criticising too much because I understand it's a business and I understand season tickets need to be set at prices and clubs need to be made money, but surely penalising fans isn't the way to go about making up for lost revenue. Do you want to talk to me on that?
I can understand Lionesses going from like £10 to £15 because that's like I use that word flagship, don't I? But that's your main kind of women's football. So I understand that should be like the most amount of money per game. I kind of get that. I get it if your women's team are playing in the men's stadium. So, for example, if Leicester was to raise their prices this season, knowing that they're going to be playing at the men's ground, I understand that because it's more of an experience for the fan. You're going to be attending a better stadium, so you're getting your value for money that way. So I would get that. But some of the teams that you mentioned, especially the Championship, I just don't understand it. And we're very lucky as United fans because our prices are very well priced. And I've been speaking to people away from this podcast about us United fans would probably pay a little bit extra as well for a season ticket. I know that like the repeat season ticket holders probably would pay a little bit extra, but the problem that you're going to get is you're not going to get the new people in. So where at the moment we're saying to all of our fans, yeah, you pay £40 and you can get 11 games. Then yeah, that's well worth it for them. But if all of a sudden you start going up in price, they're not going to buy that season ticket. You'll be lucky just to get 1 or 2 games out of them. So I think for the loyal fans, yeah, it's wrong. I completely get that. But they'll still could probably continue to pay. But then the new people coming to join, them are the ones that I'm kind of worried about because all of a sudden it goes from, oh, that's fairly cheap to, oh, I'll think twice about it. And that's kind of what worries me a little bit as well.
Yeah. Gareth, I'll bring you in on this then. Obviously, we talk about increases, and like I said, there's got to be some, and you don't mind as fans a couple of quid, and like John said, season tickets. But is there a worry that we potentially price people out of it? I mean, maybe for new fans coming in, and they'll compare it to men's, and a lot do and say, "Oh, that's really cheap." That, but I think, for anybody watching this back, and I think of like, I've known John Hume for a while. People that have been around watching women's football even longer than me, where pretty much most WSL games were £5. What are your thoughts on this now? Because obviously I'm just baffled at some championship clubs. I mean, is it to sort of, bring them in money because they've gone pro, like the likes of Coventry, for example, and Charlton, and they're thinking, oh, well, we've got to pay players. We'll just, whack on a load of money on ticket prices, or what do maybe put it down to?
I think everything is just kind of getting more expensive, and these clubs are having sort of higher costs. So I don't mind too much whacking an extra few quid on. I think, if you can go and watch a game of football for less than a tenner, then that's good value, especially, so I think Arsenal potentially, looking at 15 quid on the gate, that's quite a lot. And probably, a little bit inflated. But, I think if you're looking at less than a tenner for a game of football, especially, I know some clubs will probably do family tickets as well, so 2 adults, 2 kids. Then that's not an issue for me. I think the issue is if you're doubling your ticket prices, then that's is going to raise eyebrows, and you kind of wonder why you're doubling the tickets. But if you're going from £6 to £8, then that's absolutely fine. It's I just think
jump.
Yeah, I just think that because the demand is there more now, that as more people kind of want to go, it makes more kind of business sense to increase the prices. So, yeah, I think. But then you also see that any of the men's season ticket holders for Everton could have got a free ticket to go and watch the women at Goodison the other week as well. So I think it depends on how much they're going up by. If they're going up by sort of like a third, which sounds like an awful lot, but actually if it's going from £6 to £8,
it's not.
It's not a great deal much at all. So, I think if your ticket price is less than a tenner, then that's fine. I think if you're looking at sort of paying more than 10 quid, or if your club ticket prices are the same as Lionesses ticket prices, then there's potentially a problem there. So Arsenal, I think, are taking the mick a bit with 15 quid on the gate. But for any other clubs that are sort of 7, 8, 9 quid, then if you can go on the gate with a £10 note and get change, then I don't really think you can complain. I think Robert is pretty much spot on with what he says, where if in our first season the cup matches were included, which was great because you just knew that every home game, bang, in you go. So yeah, I think if anything, I'd like to see that change and that be different to how it is in the men's. Maybe not Champions League, but Conti Cup and an FA Cup. If you're charging 60, 70, £80, which some of these clubs are for season tickets, Arsenal is £80 for membership, include the cup games, and then I think that's absolutely fine. So yeah, on the day, less than a tenner, and make season tickets include cup games, and I think we're laughing.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It was just more, like I say, the ones that sort of had it on £5, £6, £7. I'd say
yeah, it seems a bit steep.
A little bit. Very quickly, Anthony, before we go, all I was going to ask you was, does this potentially risk, and we don't want it to happen, obviously with Sky Money coming in, going the way of men's ticket prices? And I don't mean in terms of obviously like, straight away we're going to see 30, 40 quid, but it's something we don't want to happen where, fans are not potentially priced out because it's still cheap, but maybe reluctant. Like I said, them that have been there from sort of the start of the WSL, they may think, well, actually, you know what? Like sort of Gareth said, actually, why would I pay 12 quid for Charlton when Lionesses might be the same, or 10 quid, for example? Just quickly add your thoughts on that, and obviously, yeah, if you can.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I don't think there's the fan base either, like the men's. So, yeah, you might have people that are willing to pay that amount of money, but like you said, with the people that have been there since the start and that, and new people wanting to go in, they might look at the prices and think, well, 12 quid to go and watch Charlton women, or I can pay about £6 more and go and watch. I don't know what it's at Oldham, but I think you can go to Crawley Town for about £18 and watch.
Failing that, you could go and watch Chelsea, the champions of England, for less.
Yeah, or less. So, yeah, I suppose they've got to make. It is business, but I do think the clubs that have put their prices up that much are taking the mickey a bit, and it'll be interesting to see attendance on the gates. I don't think the bigger clubs like Arsenal have a problem, but if you had, say, Charlton, for instance, got to the WSL, I think lots of people would be quite happy just to see stay at home and watch it on Sky, unless you're passionate and like Robert touched on. I would pay 60 quid for a season ticket if it included games, or even 70, to be fair, because it's still a good few games. But like you said, I think they got to tread carefully. Like, no disrespect to Charlton, but
no, it's a good.
I wouldn't want to go in. I wouldn't want to go and spend 12 quid to watch Charlton's level of football. No offense.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know you want to wrap the show up, so
no, it was just it was a good thing, because all I was thinking was, like you said, Charlton, perfect example. 200. Let's say 200 fans turn up. 100 of them could easily turn around and say, well, hang on, 2 seasons ago, it was 6 quid. We're not coming, and then you've got nobody going in.
One quick thing: how much is a Charlton season ticket?
Not a clue. I didn't look into that because I was too shocked from the match day prices.
Because if you go to
Durham charging 100 quid to bother to look.
if you don't have a season ticket, but you were to buy a ticket, that's like, what is it? 20 game? Is it 10 game? 20 games in the Championship, so that would be like £240.
Yeah, it's cost effective to buy a season ticket, obviously.
There's not 20 home games, but yeah. 10, 11 home games.
Yes, 120.
I imagine, and this will be quick, but I imagine that the reason Charlton's costs have gone up is because their costs have gone up as a result of turning pro, which is inevitable, but doubling it is a bit steep.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. Well, thanks to the three of you. It was good to be back live again and regulars on the panel. Thank you to those that tuned in. Tune in tomorrow at 7 for Natalie's show, and keep an eye on our schedule, which is pinned for the rest of the week. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.